Imagine this for a moment. You're in constant communication with someone you care about. You're texting, calling, maybe even seeing each other often, and in your mind, that closeness feels safe. It feels like proof that things are moving in the right direction. But here's the truth when someone has too much of you. Too easily, too consistently, they stop noticing the value of your presence. It's not because they don't care, it's because, as human beings, we all have a tendency to take for granted the things we don't have to work for. It's not malicious, it's just psychology. And this is where the power of silence and space comes in. When you step back, when you choose not to always be available, something fascinating happens. That person who's gotten used to you being there suddenly feels the shift. They don't hear from you like they used to. They don't see you pop up in every moment of their day, and it creates this little echo of absence in their mind. That echo is powerful. It's what makes someone stop and realize, wait, where is she? Why isn't she here like before? And it's in that moment of silence that desire begins to grow stronger than any words you could say. You see, people aren't moved to deep commitment when they're drowning in comfort. They're moved when they feel the risk of losing something meaningful. When you disappear, even just slightly, you're creating the space that allows a man to recognize your true value. You're no longer blending into the background of his life. You're standing out because your absence is suddenly felt. Think about the last time you misplaced something small but important. Your keys, your phone, your wallet. For weeks, you barely noticed it. It sat on the counter or in your bag, always there, always available. But the second it wasn't there, panic set in. You retraced your steps. You searched everywhere. You couldn't stop thinking about how badly you needed it. That's the power of absence. When something or someone has always been around, the mind gets lazy. But when that presence is withdrawn, even for a short time, it shifts from background noise to the loudest thing in your head. Now, I'm not talking about playing childish games or ghosting someone to manipulate them. This isn't about disappearing in a way that's cruel or confusing. It's about pulling back enough to let a man experience life without your constant presence. You're not punishing him, you're protecting your value. You're teaching him, without saying a word, that your time and attention are not endless supplies to be taken for granted. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Men are naturally wired to pursue. It's in their nature to chase what feels slightly out of reach, to put effort into securing what matters. But if you've been giving everything away without leaving space for pursuit, you rob him of that instinct. You take away the part of him that wants to fight for you, to claim you, to feel that he earned something truly special. Disappearing, even in small ways, reignites that instinct. It makes him step up. It makes him question what he's done. It makes him remember that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. So what does this look like in practice? It might mean you don't reply instantly to every message. It might mean you skip a call now and then, and instead spend that time on yourself. It might mean you take a few days to immerse yourself in your own passions, your own friends, your own world. And while you're doing that, he's noticing the gap. He's noticing that your energy, which he once assumed would always be there, is now something he has to earn back. And let's be real. When you're always available, when you're always the one filling the silence, you make it easy for someone to coast. They don't have to ask themselves hard questions like, am I ready to commit to her? Do I really want her in my future? because they've never had to feel the urgency of possibly losing you. Disappearing changes that dynamic instantly. Suddenly, those questions surface. Suddenly, he's not just enjoying your presence, he's fighting against the thought of a future without it. There's also something incredibly attractive about a woman who isn't afraid of silence. When you're comfortable stepping back, when you're not desperate to fill every gap with attention, it sends a signal of confidence. It shows that you don't need him to validate your worth. You don't need constant reassurance to feel secure. And that quiet strength is magnetic. It makes a man respect you more, desire you more, and see you in a completely different light. I know the fear that comes with this. You worry that if you pull back, if you create distance, he might forget you or move on. But let me tell you, the right man doesn't forget. The right man doesn't vanish just because you weren't constantly chasing him. In fact, if disappearing even a little makes him disappear completely, that tells you everything you need to know about where his heart truly was. The wrong man will vanish when you give him space. The right man will chase harder. The power of silence and space is not about manipulation. It's about clarity. It forces the relationship into truth. If he truly values you, he will step up. He will feel that absence and take action because he cannot bear the idea of letting you slip away. And if he doesn't, then your silence revealed something far more important. It showed you that he was never going to give you the commitment you deserve in the first place. So instead of fearing the silence, embrace it. Instead of rushing to fill every space with words and presence, let the quiet moments do the talking for you. Because it's in those moments that he realizes what life feels like without you. And it's in that realization that the desire to secure you for the long term starts to burn. That's why the greatest gift you can give yourself and your relationship is the courage to disappear just enough that he has to decide. Lose you or fight for you. When most people think about relationships, they imagine the effort being about giving more to the other person. They think, if I pour more attention, more time, more love into this, he'll see how valuable I am and he'll want to commit to me. But the truth is, constantly giving without pause doesn't always build attraction or commitment. In fact, sometimes it does the opposite. When your entire energy is directed at someone else, when your happiness hinges on how much attention he gives you back, you start to lose the very magnetism that made him notice you in the first place. And this is why shifting the energy back to yourself is so powerful. It doesn't just make you feel stronger, it transforms the way he sees you. Think about the energy you carry when you're fully focused on another person. You're waiting for texts, hoping for calls, trying to analyze every word he says to figure out where you stand. That energy is heavy. It doesn't inspire him to lean in closer. It actually creates a kind of pressure that makes him pull back. But when you flip that script and start pouring that energy into yourself, your passions, your goals, your growth, you become lighter, freer, and infinitely more attractive. Suddenly, you're not the woman whose mood depends on whether he's attentive today. You're the woman who already radiates joy and fulfillment, and that's the kind of energy that pulls someone closer without you having to chase. Men fall in love not just with what you give them, but with who you are. And who you are shines brightest when you're deeply connected to yourself. Imagine walking into a room where everyone else seems to be blending into the background. Then one person walks in, not because they're louder or trying harder, but because they have this calm, confident glow about them. They look like they belong to themselves. That's the kind of presence you build when you shift your focus back to you. And when a man experiences that, he doesn't see someone needy. He sees someone he's lucky to have. There's something incredibly magnetic about a woman who doesn't make another person her entire world. She has her own interests, her own circle, her own ambitions. She invests in her appearance not because she wants to impress someone else, but because she enjoys feeling radiant and alive. She works on her goals not because she's trying to prove herself, but because she values growth. She prioritizes her well-being because she knows she's worth taking care of. That kind of energy doesn't just inspire attraction, it inspires commitment. Because deep down, a man knows that if he doesn't step up, someone else will see her worth. Now, here's the interesting part. When you shift the energy back to yourself, you're not abandoning the relationship, you're enriching it. You're saying, I love spending time with you, but I also love the time I spend building my own life. And that balance is what makes you irresistible. When everything you do revolves around him, he never gets the chance to miss you. Never gets the chance to wonder what you're up to, never gets the chance to imagine you thriving without him. But when you invest in yourself, you create a natural sense of curiosity and admiration. He looks at you and thinks, she's incredible on her own. I want to be the man who gets to stand by her side. And this isn't about pretending. It's not about creating some artificial distance. It's about genuinely putting your attention where it should be, on becoming the best, happiest, most fulfilled version of yourself. Because when you're in that state, you're not waiting for someone else to complete you. You're simply inviting them to join your already beautiful life. And that shift changes everything. Instead of him feeling like you need him to feel whole, he feels like you want him, which is so much more powerful. Think of it like this. If you're constantly chasing him, he knows you'll be there no matter what. There's no urgency, no motivation to secure you, because your energy is flowing toward him whether he gives back or not. But when you take that same energy and pour it into your own life, you flip the dynamic. Now he's the one chasing. He's the one asking, how do I keep her close? How do I make sure I don't lose her? Because he can see that you're not dependent on him. You're choosing him. And men respond very differently to being chosen than being needed. Being needed can feel heavy, like a responsibility. But being chosen feels flattering, inspiring, and rare. He realizes that you're a woman who doesn't need anyone to survive, and yet you're willing to give your energy and love to him. That's the kind of choice that makes a man think long term. That's what sparks the desire to commit, to lock it down, to not risk losing you to someone else. You may not realize this, but the energy you project is felt even more strongly than the words you say. You could say all the right things, but if your energy is needy, it will push him away. You could say very little, but if your energy is radiant and self-assured, it will draw him in. That's why putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's essential. It shifts the entire atmosphere around you, and it gives him the chance to see you for the high-value woman you truly are. So the next time you feel the urge to chase, to give more, to overextend yourself in hopes of earning love, pause. Ask yourself, what if I took that energy and gave it to myself instead? What if I poured it into my fitness, my career, my friendships, my joy? What if I focused on filling my own cup so full that anyone who came into my life would feel like they were being invited to share in the overflow? That's how you stop being someone he takes for granted and start being someone he can't imagine losing. Because when your energy shifts, everything shifts. The way he looks at you changes. The way he treats you changes. And most importantly, the way you feel about yourself changes. And when you feel whole, confident, and radiant in your own life, disappearing for a while isn't a risk. It's a natural expression of your value. And in that space, he begins to see clearly. You're not just another woman passing through his life. You're the one he wants to build a life with. That's why when you take your energy back and give it to yourself, he feels the pull stronger than ever, and commitment becomes the only thing that makes sense. One of the most powerful things you can ever do in a relationship is break the pattern. People get comfortable so quickly. They get used to the routine, the rhythm, the predictability of you always being there, always showing up, always making the effort. And while consistency is a beautiful thing when it's built on mutual love and respect, consistency without balance easily turns into complacency. When a man falls into the trap of assuming you'll always be there no matter what, he stops asking himself what he needs to do to keep you. He stops feeling the urgency to step up. That's why breaking the pattern is so vital. It shakes him out of his comfort zone and forces him to see what he's at risk of losing. Think about how the human mind works. When something happens the same way over and over again, it fades into the background. If you drive the same route to work every single day, after a while you don't even notice the scenery anymore. You could pass the same trees, the same buildings, the same streets, and not even register them. But imagine one day, that same route is suddenly blocked off. Now you have to stop, pay attention, reroute, and think about what's going on. That disruption wakes you up. It makes you notice things you weren't noticing before. Relationships work the same way. When you're always there, always predictable, always following the same script, he can go on autopilot. But when you break the pattern, he wakes up. Disappearing in this context is not about punishing him. It's about shifting the dynamic. It's about changing the rhythm he's become too comfortable with. If he's used to daily texts and suddenly there's silence, if he's used to your weekends being wide open for him and suddenly you're unavailable, if he's used to knowing that no matter how little he gives, you'll still give a lot, when that changes, he feels it immediately. That break in the pattern creates contrast. It forces him to compare what life felt like when you were there to what it feels like without you. And that contrast is what makes him sit up and realize he's been taking you for granted. The contrast effect is powerful because it magnifies value. You don't appreciate light as much until you've been in darkness. You don't appreciate health until you've been sick. You don't appreciate warmth until you've felt the cold. In the same way, he doesn't truly appreciate your laughter, your energy, your presence, until suddenly he's not getting it the way he used to. By disrupting the pattern, you give him that contrast. You allow him to experience the absence that makes your presence more precious than ever. Now, let's be clear. Breaking the pattern doesn't mean disappearing forever or cutting someone off completely without reason. It means stepping back enough that he feels the void. It means interrupting the automatic rhythm so that he no longer takes it for granted. If he's gotten used to reaching out whenever it suits him and knowing you'll respond immediately, slowing down that response changes the pattern. If he's gotten used to you organizing your life around him, suddenly putting your priorities first changes the pattern. These small shifts create a big ripple effect. They make him think. They make him reflect. They make him wonder what he needs to do differently to get you back in that space of closeness. There's something else that happens when you create contrast. You restore balance in the dynamic. When one person is giving too much and the other is giving too little, it creates an imbalance that can kill attraction over time. The one who gives too much starts to feel resentful and drained, while the one who gives too little starts to feel entitled and complacent. But when you disrupt the routine by pulling back, you reset that balance. Suddenly, he has to put more in. Suddenly, he has to show up differently. And in doing so, he starts to reconnect with his desire to pursue, to invest, to commit. What makes this so effective is that it doesn't require you to say much at all. You don't have to beg, lecture, or demand commitment. You don't have to explain every detail of why you're pulling back. The change in your behavior speaks louder than words. He feels the difference. He notices the shift. And it's that noticing that makes him reevaluate his own actions. When you always explain, he can rationalize it away or make promises he doesn't keep. But when you simply change the rhythm, he doesn't have words to cling to. He only has the emptiness of your absence to deal with. And that emptiness makes him realize what he stands to lose. This is the part that makes men move. When everything feels predictable and secure, it's easy for him to coast. But when the pattern changes, he feels the risk. He feels the uncertainty, and that discomfort pushes him into action. He doesn't want to lose you, so he starts thinking about what it would take to keep you. He starts doing the very things you've been hoping he would do all along. Calling more, putting in effort, talking about the future, showing signs of commitment. And all of this happens not because you demanded it, but because you created contrast that woke him up. It's also important to understand that breaking the pattern isn't about fear. It's about respect. You're not pulling away to scare him. You're pulling away to protect your own value. You're saying, I won't allow myself to be taken for granted. I'm not going to keep pouring into something where my worth isn't being recognized. That self-respect is what makes him respect you more. A man can sense when a woman is disappearing out of insecurity versus when she's disappearing out of strength. And when it's strength, he feels it in his bones. She is not someone I can take lightly. The beauty of creating this contrast is that it often brings clarity to both sides. If he truly values you, the disruption will be unbearable. He'll feel the absence and rush to close that gap because losing you isn't an option for him. But if he doesn't step up when you break the pattern, if he's comfortable letting you fade away, then you've saved yourself from years of wasted effort. Either way, you win. You either spark the pursuit and commitment you've been waiting for, or you discover the truth that he was never going to give it to you. And you free yourself to find someone who will. That's why breaking the pattern isn't just a strategy, it's a revelation. It reveals his intentions, it reveals his feelings, it reveals whether he's willing to rise to the level of the woman you are. And the only way he'll ever have the chance to see your true value is if he's forced to experience the contrast between having you and not having you. So when you dare to disrupt the routine, when you dare to disappear in a way that breaks his comfort zone, you give him the greatest wake up call he'll ever have, and in that wake up call, he'll realize you're the woman he can't afford to lose. There's something incredibly powerful about the moment you decide to return after pulling back. Disappearing is what creates the space. It's what shakes him up and makes him realize your absence. But the real magic happens in how you come back, because it's not about simply slipping back into the same role you had before. It's about returning on your terms in your strength with your value intact. That's the moment where he sees not just the woman he's missed, but the woman he cannot afford to lose. When you return, the temptation can be to rush back into old patterns. He reaches out, you're excited, you've missed him, and suddenly you're answering every call, responding to every message, giving him all of you again as if nothing happened. But if you do that, the space you created loses its power. He feels the relief of having you back. But the lesson is gone. The impact of your absence disappears because you've stepped right back into the routine that made him complacent in the first place. That's why how you re-enter is just as important as disappearing in the first place. Coming back on your terms means you're not desperate to fill the silence again. You're not returning as someone who's grateful he noticed you were gone. You're coming back as someone who knows her worth, someone who is allowing him into her space because he's earned the right to be there. That shift in energy is everything. He's no longer seeing a woman who clings to him for validation. He's seeing a woman who holds herself with dignity, who requires respect, who makes him realize that if he doesn't step up, he could still lose her. This is where boundaries become your greatest asset. Boundaries don't mean walls, they mean standards. They mean you're clear about what you will and will not accept. So when you return, you bring those standards with you. You don't reward breadcrumbs with the same attention you once did. You don't settle for half effort disguised as love. You show, through your actions, that you're not just happy he's reached out. You're only interested if he's ready to meet you at the level you deserve. That quiet confidence makes a man recalibrate. It forces him to treat you differently. And let's be honest, the woman who disappears and then returns the same hasn't really grown. But the woman who disappears and then returns stronger, more radiant, more self-assured, that's the woman who takes his breath away. He doesn't just miss what he had, he sees something even more valuable than before. He sees someone who isn't afraid to walk away, who knows her value, who isn't going to shrink herself just to keep him. That's the kind of woman a man feels compelled to commit to because he knows she won't settle for anything less. You'll also notice that when you return in this way, the energy is different. The conversations shift. He listens more closely. He pursues with more intention. He makes promises with more weight behind them because he knows now that empty words won't keep you around. And it's not because you lectured him or tried to control him. It's because your actions already taught him the lesson. You disappearing showed him the risk of losing you, and your return showed him the conditions under which he gets to keep you. That combination is what makes him elevate his behavior. The most beautiful part of this is that you don't have to force anything. You're not sitting there demanding, treat me better or else. You're simply embodying the truth of your value. You've proven through your silence that you're willing to walk away if you're not valued. And now, through your presence, you're proving that if he wants to keep you, he has to rise to the occasion. That balance of softness and strength is irresistible. It makes him feel both the comfort of your love and the challenge of your standards. That's the sweet spot where men decide not just to love you, but to secure you. There's also an undeniable shift in the way he perceives you. Before, he may have thought you were just like everyone else. Someone who would stick around no matter how much or how little he gave. But now, he sees that you're different. You're rare. You're the kind of woman who is not afraid to let go, even of someone she cares about, if it means protecting her dignity. And that realization lights a fire under him. Because men don't commit to what feels replaceable, they commit to what feels extraordinary. So when you come back, you don't come back to pick up where you left off. You come back as an elevated version of yourself. You come back with your priorities intact, your life full, your confidence shining. And from that place, you don't just wait to see what he does. You observe carefully. Is he showing up differently this time? Is he pursuing you with more intention? Is he making space for you in his future, not just his present? Those are the signs that tell you whether this return is the beginning of something lasting or just a temporary fix. And if he doesn't step up, if he thinks your return means he can slip back into old patterns, then your strength is what guides you to walk away again. Because you're not coming back to hand over all your power. You're coming back to give him a chance to prove he's worthy of you. And if he can't, then disappearing becomes permanent, not as a punishment, but as an act of self-respect. But when he does step up, when he feels the weight of what he almost lost and realizes he doesn't want to risk it again, that's when things shift into the kind of relationship you deserve. That's when he stops thinking of you as someone he dates and starts thinking of you as someone he needs to marry. Because he's experienced the fear of life without you, and now, in your return, he sees the kind of strength and grace that makes him want to secure you forever. And that's why when you finally choose to return, you do it in a way that makes him not just grateful you're back, but desperate to make sure you never leave again.